And I've always pleased me when somebody asks for the true stories because they're so much more interesting and sometimes funnier than the phony made-up stuff. I never worked very much for the railroad. I've ridden the Western freight trains a good bit of my life, but I never worked for the railroad except but that one time. It was for the old Salt Lake San Pedro Railroad out there by the old Mormon Muddy Mission south of Lost Wages, Nevada. It's the job of gandy dancing. Gandy dancing takes its name from the Gandy Shovel Company of Chicago. Right here, they made those long-handled shovels that the Irish laborers used to work on the roadbed. The Irish worker would take the wide end of the shovel when he could find it, and you'll notice my discourse is littered with small language tests to ensure that we are welded together as a solid unit. We would jam the shovel in underneath the rail or tie and then get out on the long handle and dance a jig step to lever the tie up to push the dunnage in the gravel to level the roadbed so the train wouldn't fall off as it went by, which was just a big drag for everybody. Now, they don't gandy like that anymore. Nowadays, modern times, they build a hole, a sidetrack. You don't want to interrupt the main, and you're going to be out there sometimes for a month, 3-4 weeks. And so you put the work train in the hole, and there's going to be 3 cars there. There's going to be these tool car, and then there's going to be bunk cars with bunks 18 inches apart. You're stuffed in there like sardines, and then a cook car, all right? And with an old oil stove or a wood stove. But this was the Salt Lake San Pedro Railroad, and they were cheap. The only thing, they had everything you needed, except one thing, they didn't have a cook. The rule was that they would wait for some greenhorn to start to bitch and piss and whine and moan about the cooking. They'd say, okay, you think you can do better, you get to be the cook. Well, that was me, see? Alligator mouth. But that was the worst cooking I ever had in my life. That was dog bottom pine pheasant sweat. That was worse than the worst Unitarian church potluck supper cooking I ever had. Don't get me wrong, I've been a Unitarian most of my life. I think, how do you know if you're a Unitarian? How do you know? There's no psychic scars as with the Baltimore Catechism. And there's no identifying marks as with Jewish males. Maybe if you drink a lot of coffee and run a mimeograph, you're a Unitarian. I don't know. I ran a committee for the Unitarian Universalists for years. I did, yeah. It was called the Send a Poor Unitarian Kid to Camp, if you can find one committee. Yeah, I wrote liberal folk songs. I wrote liberal folk songs for the Unitarian hymnals back in the days of the ubiquitous church coffee house. Remember the ones in the basement with the little red lamps? And during the folk music revival, the liberal clergy seized every opportunity to translate dogma into hip rhetoric. Does that sound cynical? Probably not. Where was I? Yeah, I wrote songs like, I'm going down the road feeling, I'm going down the road feeling, you know, I'm going down the road feeling, I probably shouldn't be treated this way for I talk. We would rather not be moved. I thought, oh, which side am I on? Which side am I on? Either here or there. The reason I left Utah because the damn Unitarians burned a question mark on my front lawn. Where was I? I didn't want to cook for that bunch of grimy grifters, you see. But I knew if anybody complained about my cooking, they were going to have to cook. Armed with that knowledge, I sallied forth over the muddy river. I was stomping around in the cheat grass and the bunch grass, foraging for grub, and there, nestled at my feet in all of its pristine grandeur, was an enormous moose turd. I mean, it was a real steamer. I looked down at that pasture pastry and I said to myself, Self, I'm going to make up a big moose turd pie. Because if anybody complains about my cooking, they're going to have to cook. Well, I tipped that meadow wafer up on edge, and I rolled it like a wagon wheel down to the cook car, leaned it up against the side like a big pizza, clambered up into the car, and I baked up a whale of a big pie shell. And I baked that moose turd into it slick as you please. I crimped the edges with my thumbs, laid strips of dough across the top like they do, garnished it with some parsley and paprika, and it was poetry on a plate. I served it for dessert, waiting for the first hint of a complaint. Well, a big giant dude about 5'40" stumbled in, threw himself down like a fool on the stool, picked up a fork, and took a big bite of that moose turd pie. Well, he threw down his fork and he let out a bell and he screamed, "My God, that's moose turd pie." It's good, though.